Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, good evening and welcome to the excuse me, March 7th Finance Committee meeting. The agenda for this evening is 2017 budget update from Bonnie. If she has anything, it's basically a standing agenda item which covers us if anything needs to be discussed. And then a 2018 budget, which will discussion, which will be most of the meeting tonight. We have Mark Rombacher with us this evening just to give us a brief update on the article that will be brought forward to town meeting regarding the library project. And then the standing agenda items of public input, member updates, minutes, and the ever-popular meeting adjournment. So with no further ado, we'll have Mark give us his update on the library project.
Thank you. So there will be a warrant article on the town meeting. I believe it's on the special town meeting now. The selectmen voted to put it there. We have one article that requires basically 3 parts vote. It's all put into one. The first part of the vote is to accept the grant application that the trustees put in with the MBLC that'll cover approximately 47% of the cost of the library. The grant was submitted in January. We need approval by the town to say basically that it was okay for us to submit the grant. The second part is for the grant is to approve the schematic designs of the library, which is basically saying it's basically the size of the library and the rough layout of how big each of the departments are in the library. The schematic design can still be changed going forward, and they expect it to change. There's nothing set in stone. We can, change the facade on the building and a lot of things like that still. And we would do that post. Once you get the construction grant, you have plenty of time to do that. The third part of the grant, or third part of the warrant, is a motion to transfer the slope site from the school committee to the library for purpose of the building of the library, contingent on the grant coming through and town meeting approval, all of that. Because of the land transfer portion of the article, the entire article requires a 2/3 majority vote since it involves land transfer. In May, we are not asking for any money. We won't be asking for any money from the town until after the grant is approved by the state, and we'll know more or less the exact cost. The breakdown of the library in 2020 dollars is $13.1 million is the estimate, of which it's either 6 or 6.1 will be covered by the grant, and 7 to 7.1 would be covered by the town. That's in 2020 dollars, so it's adjusted for inflation 3 years out.
Okay.
But we're not asking for any money now. All we're asking is permission to basically to go forward with the grant application. When the grant is approved by the state, we have 6 months to come back to the town and get the money for the town's portion.
Okay, so if you don't make that 6-month window, what happens? Do you then, you lose the grant for that round, but do we then have to wait
We would have to wait for the next
years?
construction grant, which is probably roughly 8 years out. We're not really sure. The way they work is, I think there were 33 libraries that submitted for a construction grant. So I believe all the libraries will get something, and they have a certain amount of money the state allocates to libraries, to this program every year. They rank all the libraries, they'll rank them, and then they pick off the top number that they can fund out of this year's budget and award them a grant. And the top group has the 6 months to come up with the money. If all of them come up with the money, then a year from the following July, there'll be another round. If some of those don't come up with their town share, then that money becomes available, and there's a potential of, getting your grant approved in January.
Okay, so if they approve 5 libraries.
Right.
And one doesn't get approved by the town, whoever it is, that money becomes available. And if we are number 6 or number 7 or
Right.
whatever, we basically move up the
Right.
line for the next round.
Right, so
Is
after
that-
July, we'll know roughly our number, and you can get a rough approximation of when you would be funded. It's not a straight 1 to 30
Right.
something, because they break the libraries according to town size and things like that, so you'll know your number within your bucket, basically. And based on that, we could, talk to other libraries and the architect and things like that, and get a rough idea when we'd be coming off, when we'd likely be coming off the list. Until you know your number, you have no idea.
But once you submit, we're on that list, and it may be 5 years before but you don't have to reapply every year.
No.
Once you're in, it might be 5 years before you're granted.
Right.
But, okay,
Once
just
we're-
want to be clear.
Once we clear the May town meeting, if the town approves the warrant article, then we're all set for the grant whenever our number's drawn,
Okay.
basically.
Okay. Okay, and just,
And if it is 5 years out versus 3 years out, then the grant numbers will be adjusted for inflation accordingly too, right? They pay you based on what the going rate is, not the rate at the time you submitted the grant.
okay. Okay, and I know there are no, quote, money articles for the May town meeting or the special, whichever the article is in. But just so people understand, Steve Venuti ran some numbers, actually yesterday or today, and at his recommended borrowing percentage, which is around 5%, because he expects to be bonding it out in the 2020 range, and he expects, ballpark,
Yep.
what the bond rating, what the bond rates would be about that time. And if you just run the numbers off the 7.3 million, as I guess is what he came up with for the town share, it would be about $165 a year on a $400,000 house, which is sort of the average house. So if your house is worth more than that, you're going to be paying more than $164. If your house is worth less than that, you pay less than that. And in the email trail, Keith Bergman asked the question, if we end up having to spend around $1 million to refurbish this building, if the library moves out, what would that add? And I just took a ratio and said that would add about another $22 or so a year on top of the 165. So in terms of the Finance Committee trying to figure out how to fund all of what's going on, the library project plus the backfill project, we'd be looking to try to find more like $190 worth of taxes from the public to pay for those two projects, if you will. So that's sort of the range that we'd be looking at.
So the trustees are actively fundraising. There was our fund drive letter should be hitting
Yep.
your mailbox today, if not, are there already. I believe this is our 7th fundraising letter, and we have about $250,000 now that we've raised over those 7 years to apply to the building project.
Right.
So
That's great. Good
And that's
news.
money that's separate, that's in the trust funds, but it's specifically earmarked, or it's been specifically raised since we've done the 7, our 7 fund drives.
How much was that, Mark?
It's roughly $250,000. I'm not sure the exact number, but.
Okay. Oh,
It's real money.
that's excellent. Great.
And
Okay.
we're going to look to, there's a fundraising committee that's actually going to do more targeted fundraising here in the near future. It's kind of hard when you don't know what your timeline is.
Right, okay. But that's excellent, though. I think, sort of like the Castle in the Trees, there's an active community group working on that, and this obviously is a bigger project, but anything that the public is willing to donate towards that kind of project is always welcome. So I really applaud you for that effort. That's great.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mark at this point?
So
just to get this straight, so May is grant application, approve design schematic, and transfer of slope site. That's all the May.
That's all the May is, right?
And then,
And we need those to basically go forward
Yeah.
with the project. That's basically saying that, to the MVLC, that the town supports the project.
okay.
Um,
And then if the grant comes in July, then you'll be looking to go to the special town meeting in the fall.
Right.
And that's when we start talking about what
Right.
will have a cost at that point.
We have no idea where we are on the list.
Yeah.
You really can't tell. You can look at what the other libraries are, but you don't know where you are on the
Right.
list. The general feeling before was we probably aren't in the most, they look at your need, and the general feeling was probably we're not the most needy, but you don't really know how they're gonna rank everything. So,
Okay, thanks.
Good.
That's good.
All set?
How was the turnout last night?
so we had an informational session over the police station last night. I think there were probably about 20 people there. We have another one coming up on April 10th, where the architect's basically presenting the schematics and answering any questions people have. You know, there's a lot of questions about like parking and things like that.
Was it taped, so it'll be?
It is taped, it's on LCTV.
So,
The
okay.
next one will be taped as well.
Great, okay, good.
So was it the usual attendees preaching to the choir type of group, or what?
There were people in town that I haven't seen at library meetings before, so it was a good mix.
Good.
It was more a mix like you'd find at town meeting, I think, actually. There are a lot of people I know from town meeting, but not from library events. So,
Good, that's good. Okay, anything else? Great. Mark, thank you very much for coming out, and good luck with your project.
Thank you.
And next, we'll shift gears and move into the 2018 budget discussion update, and we'll have Scott Edwards give us a run-through of the Littleton Water Department budget.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. I've given you 3 sheets. The top sheet is actually the article that will be in the town meeting in May for the Water Enterprise Fund budget. And the second sheet is just kind of a summary of our budget, our internal budget that matches the town meeting article. And then the third page is we've been doing a 5-year plan, which includes expenses, capital, and revenue. So I can step through those 3. The first sheet, you can see on top is what we're projecting for revenues. And the revenues are from our rates, connection fees, different service fees, debt service fee. We have some cell tower money.
Excuse me, is
Yeah.
this year's numbers?
Oh, yeah, I messed that up. That should say.
So this is 18, okay, so this is your expected budget for next
Correct,
year?
this is
Okay,
18, yeah.
great.
And this is based on a increased rate for water?
We have a 3.3% increase coming in July 1st. We did last year, the commissioners voted a 10% rate increase, which was to our base rate, and that was over 3 years. So we'll be into the second year of that.
Okay.
And then we have, basically to balance it, we've transferred some available funds out of the Water Enterprise Fund to match our revenues. And then getting into the expenses, we've grouped salary and wages together. And then the rest of our expenses, O&M expenses. And then we get into, we kind of break our capital into equipment, meaning vehicles, trailers, things like that. And then improvements to the system, which is a large number in 2018. The reason for that being, if you go to the next page, kind of get a better breakdown of that. This page is comparing this year's fiscal year, 17, to the proposal of 18, which is in red. And you can see at the bottom, the capital equipment, capital line is way up. The reason for that is the Patriot Beverage. Steve asked me before on the meeting, but we did have a really good meeting with Patriot Beverage last week. And they had given us a projection of water use back in November, kind of a 5-year projection. And their heaviest water use, of course, is in the summer, going to be in the summer months. It's just the way I guess the beverage industry is. When we looked at that over 5 years, we started to get into some water limitations. We initially thought it would come this summer of 17. So what we did is we hired a consultant to kind of look at our system and look at, we have a couple limitations. One of them is physical, actually getting enough water out of the ground. And the second one is our Mass DEP regulations of what we're allowed to take out of the ground. So our consultants with our staff is looking at all different types of sources and how we can increase outputs out of our existing well sites and we have a new well site that we're exploring. So I had Dan Gray from Patriot Beverage in to talk to us last week. Now that they're in there and he's got some better plans, he's doing contracts with Pepsi. He basically pushed the schedule off a year, which we thought it's good for us. So his initial usage that he thought would be happening this coming summer, will be in the summer of 18. So it gives us a little bit of breathing room. But it puts us still into a bit of a clamp on water in the summertime. And so what we've done in the capital budget is we've put in $170,000 into our new Cobb's well site, which are 3 bedrock wells over off of Nagog that we're actively, they're drilled. We're just started the DEP permitting now. We're going to be doing a lot of testing on them this summer, and then trying to get the DEP permit completed by spring of 2018. So that's about our consultant said another $170,000 with all that. And then we've put in a number that actually might change a little bit before town meeting, but it's $300,000 for to re-drill wells at the Whitcomb Ave site. What we found over there is that we're permitted for more than we can physically take out of the ground right now with the type of wells that are over there. So we don't have to go through a permit process, but we do have to do, pilot testing and drill more wells, pour more water out of that site.
And what kind of, will that include incremental treatment for the Whitcomb site? Because that's basically shut down, right?
No, Whitcomb's running.
It is?
Yeah, Whitcomb's running. We try not to run it as much in the winter because it is untreated. We treat it with, we treat it for pH and we treat it with chlorine to sterilize it, but we don't have any filtration on it. We don't filter out the iron and manganese, and that's an issue at that site.
Right.
But we're permitted for 600 gallons a minute. Right now, we can only get a little over 400 gallons a minute out of it, so we got a little bit of room there.
So will the new wells include treatment? Or not on that well?
We're going to end up treating either Whitcomb Ave or the new well site at Cobb's, the new bedrock wells. We've done some initial water quality testing there. The only thing we're finding, and those are deep bedrock wells, meaning 400 or 500 foot wells. The only issue we're having there is radon, which is easy to treat for. inexpensive, and some manganese. So as we go through this summer and test more, we'll see if the manganese is an issue. We'll probably have to treat that. Cobb's well may replace Whitcomb. Whitcomb may end up being 3, 4, 5 years down the road, a peaking well, meaning we only need it in case of another well being down or really high consumption. Our goal is, as a department, is to have all our sites treated. Right now, we have, Speck Pond and Beaver Brook treated, so that's the goal down the road. And these new bedrock wells are really looking good for us. We kind of hit the drillers calling it a monster well, so we're hoping that they turn out good for us. But that's the reason, that's the long-winded reason why our capital costs are up higher than typical for 18. And then, looking out past 18, if you look to the third page, or 5.
Scott, to
Yep.
go back to Cobb's.
Yes,
If memory serves, you're already tapped into the main on Nagog Hill,
correct,
so you don't have to dig up Nagog again.
correct.
Okay.
There's it's either a 10 or 12-inch tap that comes up Cobb's Lane a ways, so we would just have to tie that in, but we wouldn't have to dig up the road, no.
Okay. Since we just repaved it.
Yeah.
Exactly,
How did that happen?
yeah.
Jimmy did a good job.
Proper planning.
Yes.
Jimmy did a good job,
It
right?
actually worked out, yeah. So if you look at our 5-year plan, I've got the 2018 highlighted. At the top is the O&M and the salaries and our debt service that we have for 18. And then in capital, we've got $60,000 in distribution equipment, which is an excavator and a trailer. And then the next is where you see the $170,000 for Cobb's well and the capacity improvement. You can see there's nothing out past that because we just don't know yet what site we're going to attack. If we go to a treatment plant, obviously that would have to be bonded. You're looking at $5 or $6 million for a treatment plant. So those numbers, have yet to be determined, but we'll be developing those as we go through this year,
Okay.
for sure.
And on the revenue side, Scott,
Yes,
2018 is about $2 million bucks.
from the rates, yes.
But I don't see any uptick for Pepsi or Patriot.
We
whatever it's
haven't
called.
added that in specifically because we don't know when it's going to start.
Okay,
Dan Gray thinks, the real issue, his timing right now is getting
needs a contract.
contracts with
Yeah.
Pepsi. He has to get his plant certified by Pepsi, and so he's kind of in a testing stage. He thinks he'll do that all the way through the fall. He's hoping he has contracts in place by January or February. And he said, they're going to work closely with us, and when they get the contracts, they're going to start with a Pepsi, some type of water product that they sell, Pure Life or something like that, and Gatorade. He said when they start, it'll ramp up real quick. But we're going to have conversations every month,
Okay.
and he's going to let us know. So that's why I haven't included anything in there yet, because we don't know that, it might not be until May of 2018 that they actually get
But
started.
the plan that he has in place now, does it take us back to the 20% of the water usage
Yeah.
that Very Fine was, or
It's-
more,
it's
or
between-
less, or?
The first year, maybe not, maybe 2018, it would be maybe 10 to 15%.
Okay.
But if he hits his numbers where he's thinking, it's going to be in the 15 to 20% range.
So out of 19 and 20, there's that kind of bump
Correct.
available.
Correct.
And that's when you need your incremental capacity for the summer.
Right, right.
Okay.
So he's he's got a lot of big plans over there. I mean, he wants to run a 24/7 operation. You know, he knows that industry. He worked at Very Fine. He's up in Air now, and he just, he's got his workforce already hired. They're working up in Air now, and they're just going to transfer them down to the Very Fine plant and then rehire people from Air. He said Pepsi's just spilling over. They've got a lot of bottling needs.
Okay.
You know, so he's, you know, in the future, maybe 5 years down the road, he's talking about maybe making the bottles there, you know, do the blow molding. So he's got a lot of big plans, so we're kind of really moving to keep up with him at this point.
Okay, so the timing of 2019 for a ramp-up probably is not all that bad in terms of supporting the debt service that's likely to come in about that time or a little later than that, so.
Correct, I agree, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely expect 2019 that we'll be borrowing money to build a treatment plant.
Okay.
Whether it's at Whitcomb Ave or at the new Cobb's site.
Do you have to hire anybody in conjunction with that new treatment plan, or do you have sufficient staff?
No, you have to hire somebody. You have to hire somebody they do basically a pilot test on the water. They set up a mini treatment plant for you, and there's, you know, different ways of treating, and they test out which one's best. And then there's experts that design treatment plans.
No, I mean, as far as an employee.
Employee, I would say if we add another treatment plant, we would definitely we'll be adding another employee. We're down one employee because when Very Fine left, we laid off a treatment plant operator. So we would, with 3 treatment plants, we'd definitely
Okay.
be adding someone. At least one person, I would say.
Okay. And when you hire people, you budget for the full OPEB?
They do
the way the
everything.
town is doing now, or reserve? Okay, good, great. Thank you.
And then we have in the revenue side, we've got our connection fees. The connection fees are definitely high in 17, 18, and 19. You know, we have money coming in from the Point still, their connection fees up there, and then the residential building, you know, with the subdivisions that we've got on the books right now, is going to provide a lot of that revenue. And then the jobbings, other charges and jobbings are basically sprinkler demand charges for the commercial buildings. We do backflow testing, and then also just when we do work for contractors, it hits our expense side of the budget, but then we get reimbursed for it. So that's what that number is. We have some cell tower revenue from Cedar Hill and Great Road. We get a little bit of money from our monitoring well testing program that we started back up last year. And then our debt service charge takes care of our all the debt service. So, you know, that being all said, it looks like we're going to be positive in 18. But, you know, that's, you just don't know where some of these numbers are going to hit. So it's fairly close. But, you know, I think our reserve fund, going into 17, we had our reserve fund at around 990,000. I know that hasn't been certified yet, but I think we're getting closer. So I think we're, you know, our goal is to keep $1 million in our
Fund balance, yeah.
fund balance, yeah.
Yes, some of that is available and some of that is not,
Correct.
depending on, you know, how DOR certifies it, so.
Correct, yes.
And really, your projections here are still conservative because you haven't factored in the extra volume from Patriot, right? So.
Correct. Right. So that's, you know,
And
you
hopefully,
can see.
hopefully Patriot pays for the incremental resources you need, plus
Yep.
the debt service, the incremental debt
Yep.
service he's going to have to put on.
But short term, it's really just volume. Like this
Yeah.
year, next year, it's just, you're just gonna have volume, more volume, and building up the other stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, the loss of, when Sunny D closed down, they had been kind of ramping down, so they were 10 to 15% of our revenue. But we've really made a lot of that up in a short time with the Point, and some of the new homes and 15 Great Road, and it's, we've made it up. We took some of the restrictions off irrigation, outdoor watering. I know we had to put them back on late last summer because of the statewide drought, but we have a DEP, our DEP permit, they call for, and this is statewide, they want you to stay under 65 gallons per person per household, and stay under 10% unaccounted for water. So a few years ago, we were at, I think, 58 gallons per person. And then after Sunny D closed, we relaxed some of our irrigation guidelines, and that jumped the following year to 62 gallons. We just calculated it for this past year, and we hit it at 64.5. So we're as close as we can get without going over, which is fine, as long as you don't go over. But we've got our unaccounted for watered from 16% down to 9%. So we've made a lot of great strides in leak detection, but also we found a lot of commercial meters, older commercial meters that were not registering correctly, HP being one of them. So they were paying about $15,000 a year in water, and they're up to about $80,000 now.
What?
And that was just for metering. So it was a big jump, so.
It's finding a 20 in your pocket.
Yeah. It was very nice. Very nice.
So when you say households, those are connected households, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have a whole spreadsheet of how many residential services we have and how many people and all that, and then you do the calculations on that. So we, given that, that we've allowed some more outdoor watering, and we've only reduced it when the state mandated it, I think we're doing good.
So what happens when you go over the 65 gallons per person per household?
What they do is then the state can come in and mandate your water usage, meaning they can automatically put you under irrigation restrictions, outdoor watering restrictions, which they would do. Come May 1st, they'd say, you have to water 2 days a week. I think ours might be 1 day a week.
Would you do that? Like if Patriot ramped up and you needed more, would you do that to balance the system out? You would do it, right?
We would probably have to right now because we're only allowed to pump. They give you yearly totals that you can pump out of your wells, but they also give you peak days. And if you go over your peak day, then you're all kinds of fines and, so you get to a point where you have to do something like that. So, luckily that they've kind of pushed it off a year. I think that'll give us some time to find some extra water. And, because we want people to be able to use the water. I know a lot of people like to water their lawns and they want green lawns and as long as we're not in a drought situation, I think that's kind of what our goal is, to have people use the water.
What percentage of the town is on wells, do you know?
It's pretty low. It's probably it's less than 10%.
Yeah, my daughter's
I
on
am,
well.
yeah.
Yeah. We got a lot of requests after last year because a lot of the wells started to fail, and a lot of requests to connect to our system. I know we had a well driller in November to drill the Cobb's wells, and he was just straight out. He said so many people are, the wells are going dry.
So they
People
try to go
that have
deeper,
sand and
find
gravel wells, they were just drying up. People have no water in their house,
And
so,
we had good recovery on that from us? Yeah?
pretty good, yeah. Yeah. It was looking a little shaky. I mean, we still need at least a normal spring. I think some of the surface water, I think the reservoirs are still down, but as far as groundwater recharge, we've done pretty well. And hopefully we have a normal spring as far as water, your.
Rain, not snow.
Rain, and, yeah.
Right.
Last fall, I think it was last fall, or maybe it was last spring, you got authorization to purchase a piece of property next, was it Cedar Hill?
Yes.
And
We
did that
did.
go through,
Yes,
and
we
you're all
bought that,
set for
yes.
that? Okay.
Yeah, in fact, because the fund wasn't certified, we, at town meeting, we had to do a short-term borrowing for the 200,000.
Right.
But at special town meeting this year, we're gonna transfer that money.
Okay.
Pay that off.
Okay,
So that's all.
So that's good. So
That's
you're
all
set
funding.
there if-
Yep.
when that time comes.
Yep.
That's good.
Yeah.
And on an aside, we've asked Bonnie to put together, field maintenance costs, sort of collecting all the bits and pieces from all the departments around town. And I know that Kevin Hunt, was it
Yep.
Kevin Hunt? A year or so ago, put out a memo on what the schools were spending on watering their fields, which wasn't enough, and whatnot. And I know that the water commissioners lowered the rate for that specific purpose.
Yes.
And,
But they're not all metered separately at this point.
Well, the high school is now. That meter just got installed a couple weeks ago. So the water department bought the meter, the school installed it. So that's going to be a separate charge under that new rate.
okay,
The watering that went on down at, the alumni field, that all came out of the pond anyway, so it wasn't.
So it wasn't-
It wasn't town water.
Okay.
So that wasn't metered. So that's really, the only two places that new rate applied to were the fields behind the high school.
Okay.
And the soccer field next to us. And the athletic association pays for that.
okay.
So
Oh,
that-
the Kerper
that-
Field?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
that-
yeah, okay.
That was lowered too, so, that'll be metered separately, so they'll be able to tell exactly what they're using there, and, it sounds like separate funds have been set aside just for that, because that field just wasn't getting watered and it died out,
Okay.
unfortunately. So, hoping that they can get that back going. And,
Okay.
yeah, and Bonnie asked me earlier about the lights at Alumni Field. To get and those are metered separately, I'm pretty sure, so we can get that bill.
Okay, and part of this is in response to feedback we got at town meeting last year. I mean, people wanted to know what we were spending on the fields, and nobody could tell anybody what we were spending on the field. So if we can collect all the bits and pieces and put it in one place, then at least from a budgetary standpoint, we can stand up and say it's X amount of money, and I don't know if it's enough or it's not enough, but at least we know what it is to start with, and then we can work from there.
Yep.
So, great, that's really good. So Kevin was really helpful on that, appreciate it. Anything else for Scott?
So, like I said earlier, the capital numbers may change. We're still kind of in the process of getting some better numbers for both Cobb's and the Whitcomb Ave site. I'm not sure, how late can I change that?
Right up until the end of March, I think.
Is that when they accept, March 24th? Is
Yeah.
that the date?
Yep.
Okay, all right. That gives us a little bit of time, and we have our next commissioners meeting's on the 22nd, so that works out
Perfect.
fine. So if I do change it, I'll let you know.
Okay, good, and then we can vote to support at that point, yeah. Great.
Want more Dave, a couple of years ago, we were a little shakier, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, kudos
Long
to
way.
Scott
I
and his
know,
crew. I
exactly,
think they've done a
yeah.
heck of a job down there. I
Yeah.
really think they've done a fine job. So we really, from our perspective, we really
Right.
appreciate it.
Yeah, and it, you know, water has become an expensive commodity. I mean, it used to be, you know, in the days where it was pumped out of the ground and went right into your house, and you didn't have to treat it and filter it, and it was, but it's become and it's limited now by the state, so you have to really kind of be careful with what you do with it, so.
I still have to treat and filter my water, even though I pump it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Arsenic? Green?
Couple of-
Kryptonite?
That's scary.
And, you know, luckily, I think, you know, we've tried to educate the public and the businesses on, you know, the value of water and taking care of it, and, you know, everybody's really responded really well to it, so, it's, you know, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna try to keep it flowing and keep the quality up as high as we possibly can, so.
Great.
Pretty lucky in New England on that one, right? Because a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes,
you
absolutely.
really don't
Yeah,
realize what a precious commodity, scarce commodity it is in a lot of cases.
Just on a side note, our treatment plant operator, Paul De Niro, he was just reading some information on that whole Flint, Michigan. They had switched supply so that they could avoid the, you know, treating the water. The treatment for a year would have been $35,000.
Oh, no kidding.
So they switched the supply to the river, which added all the lead to the system, for $35,000. That's all it would have been, because it was just a simple chemical treatment. I think it was the treatment, I think it was the pH or something of the water.
Wow.
And that's, somebody made that decision.
I read
So,
that too, yeah.
Yeah, it
I read
was.
that.
I know it's that little
Yeah.
amount of money.
It's ridiculous, so we are lucky in Massachusetts. We're heavily regulated, but that's, you know, not always a bad thing, that's for sure, so. Okay?
Yep, thank you very much,
All right,
Scott.
thank you.
Thank you.
And if you do plan on, if you do change any of the numbers, just obviously come back through Bonnie, but we'd just like to know before we vote the
Sure.
final budget. Great.
Absolutely.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank
Good night.
Appreciate it. Okay. You just, you gave us quite a packet
I
tonight.
did.
What,
Give you a lot of info to read.
Okay, here you go. Would you like to just walk us through what's in the packet, and then we can,
Basically, the budget update that you have is the same one that you reviewed at the joint meeting. There are no changes here.
Okay.
And I don't anticipate any changes between now and town meeting or June. So, again, we stand in balance with a tiny surplus of about $11,000. With the school appropriation budgeted for that $807,000 increase, I am going to be presenting the budget a little bit differently as it relates to field maintenance costs. As discussed in the last meeting, I'm allocating everything into one line item, one budget, under the Director of Public Works control. So there is about $34,000 and maybe a little bit more with lights that sits in the school department budget that I need to shift out of that appropriation into the field maintenance. We're also shifting dollars under the highway department that's used for parks maintenance. And we're also including some funds from the Park and Rec Commission that they collect for the fees that are used by the highway department to buy the supplies. So that whole budget is not going to change what we appropriate. It's just going to kind of reallocate it into a field maintenance budget so people can see it.
Meaning,
We're not increasing the budget.
you're
I'm
not
not-
changing the dollars,
No.
but the money's actually gonna be here. It's not, you're not just reporting it here, but it's still over
It's
here.
gonna be in one.
It's actually gonna be in
Yes.
one. Okay, good.
Because that's what people want to
So-
know.
It's not only to see it, it's just somebody can control it. Somebody owns it, can make decisions on this versus that.
Correct.
Because it's in one place. Yeah.
so it'll be under Chris's
Yes.
control.
So you'll see the highway budget, and then we have a very small parks maintenance budget within there. It's like $10,000 for the summer kids. So that budget will be enhanced, and it'll show the wages and then the expenses, like we do for all the other
Okay.
departments. But it will not change the net budget.
Okay, that's good.
at this point.
Nope.
Yep, no, that's
Right.
good.
Decide that going forward.
Excellent, progress.
So I will be doing that. Again, there's no changes from the last meeting. What I did want to do is, based on the request that I had about the staffing, I did go through, I'm going to put this up on the board, but I did put it in your packet. There's just a small sheet here
Yep.
that shows the school department staffing levels for the last 6 years. And it's by school. So, the comments were made about the staffing levels, what have they increased by, or have they recovered?
Right.
Since they were reduced. I'm not sure what particular year they were talking about. I didn't catch that, but we started tracking this in 2012 ourselves, and it's something that we prove with the school departments every year through the budget process. So these are not numbers that are just mine or just the schools. They're agreed upon in the budget process.
Okay.
So you can see, we did break it out by school, as I said. So the high school, middle school, Russell Street, and Shaker Lane. And you can see for fiscal 2017 over here, this fiscal year, there are 129.2 FTE, full-time equivalent teaching positions. So this does not include
Not the
teachers'
aides,
aides,
no.
cafeteria workers, anything. It's just LEA teachers, so the union teachers. And that is up from, the low in 2012, or when we started this, of 105. There are 3 vacant positions in 2017. They are included in these numbers, but they are vacant. They're being held open.
So there were 3 in the 4, do you know which schools they're
Yes.
assigned to?
Yeah, one is in the middle school, one is in the Russell Street School, and one is in Shaker Lane.
Okay.
So
And
really,
and
Shaker
those-
Lane has 31.7 right now, active.
Okay. But they're budgeted for 32.7?
Correct.
Okay.
I thought it was kind of interesting, just because I put this together this afternoon. The Shaker Lane number is down from even fiscal 2015, where they had 36, and now they have 32. And they're down, one vacancy in that. The others are all consistently up.
And that was one of the comments that was made about the class sizes in Shaker Lane are getting larger, but,
Right.
yep.
What I didn't do, and what I thought might be helpful, I can go to the DESE website and figure out the student population for these years by school. I think they do, I think they actually show it by school, so I can add that data point in
I
there
think
for you.
that would be useful, I think.
Very
yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Makes it more meaningful.
Yeah. So I will do that, and I'll email that out to you tomorrow, just so you
Great.
have it, so you can take a look at it. I know you might have meetings scheduled for your
Okay, great.
budget updates, but.
Thank
So
you.
I wanted to provide that. We are on target for 2017 still. We're doing very well. I've been keeping an eye on the veterans budget, because that's typically the one that, that's going to go over that one. And we're still on target. So we should be
And what
fine.
about legal fees? That's one that
Fine.
surprises us every once in a while. No
Fine.
big problems so far, okay?
Not yet.
And snow and ice, that seems to have disappeared.
Well, yeah, I'd give it until the end of the month before, I can start kind of looking at what's out there, because we're still processing bills
Sure,
and
sure.
stuff. So, but yeah, I'll probably have a better idea, the first week in April of what we
Okay.
have left.
Now, the selectmen voted to allow Keith the responsibility under a new general law to authorize the spending, right? The snow and ice
No,
spending.
they can't authorize Keith to do that. The new law states that you don't need finance committee approval. You still need the Board of Selectmen approval.
Oh, okay,
So they did bring it to the Board of Selectmen. It's the highest governing authority. So in a town with a town manager charter,
Right.
then it would be the town
Town
manager.
manager.
We don't have that, so it's the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, so we no longer have to approve that?
No.
Okay. Okay. Because I know we hadn't, and we must
Right.
have blown over the first amount, so.
Yeah, we just, we did it at, I think just 2 meetings ago, at the Silverman's meeting. Chris gave a heads up that we were close.
Okay.
But yeah, they did not,
So-
they're not authorized to
Okay,
delegate.
it just dawned on me that we hadn't seen it, and
Yep,
okay.
yeah, municipal reform, I don't know what that.
So now we can ask the selectmen, why are they spending so much on snow and ice? You got that, Melissa? All right.
I did provide you also with a capital update that we, again, reviewed last joint meeting. Nothing has changed here either, but I wanted to give it to you just formally so that you have it. I also put a draft warrant in here.
Okay.
I thought this was helpful because it has the timeline on the front of it. So you can see when the warrant closes, when the publication dates are due for the booklet. So you can kind of figure out when you need to schedule your meetings and your votes.
Yeah, I
And
had-
obviously, I didn't expect you to, take any votes tonight because I'm just giving you the draft, but I wanted to at least have you take a gander at it. The items bolded in the sheet were already inserted into the warrant. They also inserted a few others this week. I'll get up to here. Okay, so they also inserted special town meeting articles 4 and 5. So Article 4 is the library building project, and 5 is the capital improvement plan adjustments. There's no vote of support, this is just inserting the articles. And then they voted to insert ATM Articles 7 and 14. So 7 was the capital items that were presented in that memo.
Excuse me, back on the special?
Yep.
Article 5, there's another 200,000 for the sewer.
Yes.
The town meeting supported
52.
52?
Yes, this
Okay.
would be added to that.
Okay, so we're up to 452.
Correct.
Okay.
Let's see, so they did, yes, Article 7 and Article 14. So 7 is the capital plan article, and 14 is the senior and veterans tax work-off abatement program. Just as a note, in the senior citizens one, we normally do 55,000 annually to this. It's been like that for the last, 5 years. Minimum wage has gone up pretty significantly in the last few years. So what's happening is people are getting less and working less because the rate's gone up to the $11. And bringing it to 80 brings it back to the level that it was before this creep in minimum wage was. So it's not allowing for,
Back to the number of hours of service to the town.
correct.
Okay, so we get back to having the but the working hours
Yes.
that we had
Once upon a
several
time,
years ago.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So this has already been factored into the allowance for abatement account, so
Okay.
we've included that. And the veterans amount is the same. John said that he was fine with what he had. So those were inserted. Let's see. So you can take a look at those, and then maybe we can start making recommendations in your next few meetings.
Okay.
I also enclosed just the information on the Joyce Williams property parcel, just so you have it. We are looking to fund this through CPC, through, a couple of different buckets, through the open space and the undesignated. And then we'd be borrowing $300,000 with the hope that we would be getting this grant that we're applying for. But if not, then we're going to pay it back through CPC funds at that point.
And there's enough there and.
Yes.
And it's more long-term debt basically in there, right, which restricts our other spending and so on, but.
Going forward, right. Yeah, if we don't borrow the 300, it basically took a couple of the line items down to like $10,000. And so we said, well, we were going to borrow 400,000 before.
Right,
So why not continue that?
right.
So that we reserve some of the money in CPC if something else comes up over the next couple of years.
Yep.
So that was the CPC's desire. And we're meeting, I think, on Thursday evening.
Yep. And I'm doing an update for you on that. Why can't?
CPC will meet on Thursday evening to,
So
review
this is where I'm seeing the CPC balances. I apologize, I didn't print this out, but I had it with me. So you can see the open space revenues for next year, and this should say 18, I just didn't update the worksheet there. With the 10, 10, 10, and 70 balances that you have to appropriate into those specific buckets, they'll be adding 26,000 to open space. We have an ending balance of 581, so there's 607,000 available, okay? So the spending plan, we have to pay the debt service for YAP, the property there, the debt service for Cobb, which is split between this open space bucket and undesignated. The total open space debt service for that is 23,000. And then we're taking 581, 273 out of the open space bucket and 392, 485 for the Williams property. That brings us to the 973, and we have 300,000 remaining on that total purchase price that we'd be borrowing. So you can see the ending balance, if there are no other projects approved down here, there'll still be about $1.1 million in CPC funds with the 2018 revenues. Now, this does not incorporate anything for state match for 2018 because we can't count it until we actually have it in hand. And it does not include anything that we might appropriate in 2018 to get the additional 2% amount.
this does include the blended funds.
For 17.
That will go in at this special.
Yes, it does.
Okay. And the numbers will end up being a little different because the CPC has voted a different allocation than the 10, 10, 10.
On the
For-
additional.
For 18, for the addition.
Yes, that's factored in here. Are you talking about for the surcharge revenues?
Yep.
Okay, then I need to change that.
I'm not, yeah, I say yes. We'll verify that
Okay.
on Wednesday. I'm not sure. I know for the blended, we voted a different breakdown than the 10, 10, 10. I'm not sure about the 1%, so let me
Okay.
verify that before you change anything. But in any event,
Yeah, I did factor the recommendations that were made.
I like the 3 cents in there.
I know, I had to, I gotta leave it open.
we aims to please,
Hey,
Betsy. We're not spending it all.
Yeah, we're not spending it all, that's right.
But, at
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I
Yeah.
mean, basically, we've got, 2.2 available,
Yeah,
and we're
yeah,
ending
right,
the year with
so, yeah,
1.1,
right.
so,
That's- Yeah, right.
open space is
Yeah.
the main
Yeah.
funnel for
Well,
this
and the
money.
Church Meadow debt is gone this year. That was a big chunk of what was coming out, because we aggressively paid that off. We did it
Okay.
like over
All right.
3 or 4 years, so.
Now, the bathhouse, the beach house,
Yep.
we were thinking that it was going to be maybe a $300,000 project, but
Right.
the Park and Rec Commissioners sort of rethought that and are going for design money.
Correct.
Which is
30.
the 30,000 that's
Yep.
up here. And we can cover that, and we'll have about 300 left. And we would then be expecting to come back next year, maybe in the fall, or maybe even in the fall if we get the design, to get that going in the spring. But get
That's
that
the hope.
replaced.
Yeah.
So that's the next big thing that we would be looking at from a CPC standpoint. If you take that 300 out, we're down to $750,000. So we're really getting down there in terms of available funds to do much of anything for anybody.
Yep.
So
I'll email this out to you.
any more
guys.
big ticket items come along, like another piece of land,
Yep.
it's override territory.
And I did check with Keith to see if I'm missing any projects in the pipeline, and he said no, he didn't see any
Okay.
that I was missing, so.
Good,
at CPC.
thank you.
I did,
Oh, any other questions on this, or the? Okay.
Well, the only comment I have on Boathouse is that I don't think that's on PMBC's radar screen, so I would assume
it will be.
I'm sure it will be. Yeah.
Which one, the bathhouse?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the bathhouse.
Or, I don't know, I'm just got beach house, I don't know what it will all entail.
I have to say, it's really nice having a PE here now, because Chris helped a lot with, looking at this and like, what are you really looking at for a design? And he offered his assistance. I mean, he's busy, but he's willing to pitch in and roll up his
That's great.
sleeves. And
That's great.
So it's nice.
Made a difference already, huh? Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, the only other thing I wanted to show you, and this is just kind of a bragging thing, but we're looking, I have that request in for software updates, and I wanted to kind of show you what a small component of it is, but I think it's going to be very valuable. So this is Arlington's budget page. And this is something that we're looking at. It'll look a little bit different because every town structures it a little bit differently. But this is one of the components that makes up this software. It's not OpenGov, it's Citizen Transparency. So you can put this on your page. So in this case, you can see, they actually have their property tax bill put in, and it shows, what the breakout looks like. So if you want to say, how much does the town spend on schools? So it tells you your bill, the increase from last year, some of the basic info. And then if you go, okay, I want to see the school department. So it shows you what your contribution is, tells you what is in pupil services, out of district, management, the tech. And then I want to go in there. So you can keep drilling into, and you can drill, like if you want to drill down to, if you want it set up so that you can drill down to detailed invoices, you can. I don't know how drilled we're going to want to get in there, but I think it's kind of exciting that, this is just available, and it will be.
So is it the
Open
intent
it.
to have this available?
Yeah, this is one of the, yes.
So is there a glossary of terms, so if somebody went on and saw free cash,
Right?
Yeah,
is there something that explains what free
Yes.
cash is?
there it is.
Oh, good.
Yeah, great.
That's great.
How much she pay you for that?
Good segue.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this module is a small cost in the total, appropriation for the budget. I mean, the driver is the HR stuff and the, GL and AP. This is just, it interfaces with it. It updates as often as you want it to, and it's like a couple $1,000s a year to have
It's
it.
the sizzle that goes with this steak.
But, you look at this as a time,
This is what sells.
yeah, this is it.
Yeah?
This is it.
Yeah?
Been there.
So when somebody says, can you tell me what we spent on whatever?
Right.
It's right there.
Right.
So I just wanted to
Yeah,
show you,
no.
it's kind of slick. We're pretty excited, so. Anywho.
Yeah. Be expected in this day and age, so.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It should be
So
available. It should be out there.
how much effort is it to put the information in so that it can then be manipulated
This
or recalled?
is like an automatic. It's like an update.
Once, well, but.
As often as you want.
Once you load your budget.
Is it as good as Steve Venuti?
Steve is like, this is pretty nice.
Maybe you'll stay a couple more years.
It's one of the things it does is Steve spends a tremendous amount of time doing these employee benefit worksheets that every employee gets, and it says, this is what we spent on you this year. Here's your salary, your benefits, your days off, your health insurance, your life insurance, and he puts all of that together. This system, boom, and it's done.
Yeah.
So, from a time management, we are just like, oh my God.
spend your time on some
Well, we
value-added
spend a
stuff.
lot of time creating spreadsheets, downloading, manipulating. And every time you do that, you run a chance that somebody might make a mistake or, you know.
So all the information is in a database,
Yep.
and then you just call upon that database to put together reports or graphs.
Yep. You can download it into Excel. You don't even have to download. You can download it into Excel, but you can go into Excel and upload it in your own format. So it's not like you're getting this download that is maybe not visually appealing, or you're getting fields that you don't want. So it works both ways, which is nice, as an accountant, you know.
So, I mean, that's something that your department could do, but if I'm at home and I go on the website, I can't.
You can't do that, no. No, this is the
I can look at it,
citizens.
but I can't manipulate
This is the
it.
citizens interface. So you're able to, you can download this into a report, but you can't,
It's kind of a read-only.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
There's also a portal that kind of works like this for employees. It's called the employee portal. So they can go in and, you know, request a copy of their, you know, W-2, or, you know, put in for vacation time, or, you know,
How
look at
much
their
is
accrued
my-
balances, yeah, whatever.
And for the general accounting functions, is it helpful for that too? I mean, just be
Yes.
more current and so on?
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to know what we were spending on a road project, for example,
Yes.
Is that-
From an accounting perspective, right now, everything that I do is based on a fiscal year. So if I want to figure out what we spent on the police station, I have to run reports for every year that that project was open. It might be 5 years. And then I have to download it into Excel, manipulate it myself, and get it into a report that I can call meaningful. This system does it based on, it'll do it in the way that I need it from a fiscal year standpoint, but it also does it from a life cycle standpoint for a project. So,
But you're only gonna start from day one. You're not gonna go back and load in historical information.
they will, no, we're gonna carry our historical data as part of it.
Really?
Yep,
Cool.
yep.
so,
So we'll have 10 years worth of data.
so PMBC, for example, could be authorized to look at specific types of projects and, you know,
Yes,
and see that kind of information.
right.
Chris, for roads, could
Yes.
look at,
New Estate Road,
could,
From the
you know,
beginning
look
to, you
at
know.
different information.
correct.
Now, the John Q. Public, or Jane Q. Public, could have a citizens interface that would give sort of summary level
Yes.
data, but not be able to drill down so far. Is that? I
We
mean,
we can structure it pretty much any way you want.
Okay.
There are very few communities that drill down to an actual invoice level, because
Right, no, that,
sometimes there's corrections and, you know, and there's,
no,
you
you
know.
just don't need
We
it.
don't need it.
So you can structure it any way you want.
Okay, so you would get together,
As an example, like this, you know, when I went to the expenses and I went to the schools, we might set this up differently. We might set this up by school. So we could say, you know, Russell Street High School, Middle School, Shaker Lane, and then drill into what was instructional services and what was, we have to figure, you know, how we want it set up. But there's.
so you and Steve Mark would work out what level of whatever, and then the school committee would okay it or whatever.
They wouldn't really okay it, it's my product. But I would.
But you work together as a
Yeah,
team.
yeah, we always, you know, it's like, what I would want to know is what kind of questions does he get asked
Right.
to report on? And that's how you want to set it up, so that people don't have to,
Right.
you know,
Right.
come in
Spend
or
their
call your
time.
office and try and hunt you
It
down.
doesn't need to be showing how much, I mean, I know it's public information, but, you know, how much money this person makes versus that person versus that, I
No.
mean, that doesn't need to be.
It's in the town report.
Right.
Okay.
But I think it's a great,
So does this mean Darrell doesn't have to come in and talk to you about?
poor Darrell, he does such a good job. But yeah, I mean, you know, I could run a report on the project from the, you know, for the life, so.
Well, sometimes we
wouldn't-
don't know which bucket you have the money in, and we show it in a bucket that
Right.
it doesn't exist, or, yeah.
It's your private one.
So what is your expected timeline?
Does
I'm
it
sorry.
feel like a decent tool for PMBC or somebody that, I mean, obviously, I mean, this is what you do for a living, but,
It sounds promising. I don't know if, do you think that it's going to be beneficial for Darrell to understand better where all the dollars are?
Yeah.
It will be.
Yeah, because
Okay.
right now, it's like, I run the reports, they're fiscal year based. So I have to run one for last year, and then I have to run one for this year. And then he's gotta go extract data,
Right.
and you might have sub-accounts that aren't there, but in a project-based accounting, I can create them.
Okay.
And, you know, line them up however you want. So, yeah.
Okay.
You know, if he says, run me everything that's been going on this project, I can run it, and it's gonna be clean. It's not gonna show rollover balances or,
Good.
yeah.
Yeah. That'll help.
What is your expected timeline on this?
They're giving me the implementation, we're not gonna do everything at once, because I'm not crazy. But accounting and GL and AP would be first, because those are the easier modules, and they're clean. And then we would do the collections and.
Are those like, is that 1 month or 5 months or 9 months?
They're giving me the timeline. I'm thinking, you know, the accounting module probably gonna take just a couple of months, maybe, you know, 3 months, say. The collections, probably about the same. And it doesn't really matter when it happens, because we're gonna convert the data, so it doesn't matter if it happens in November, because it doesn't matter. They're gonna convert back to, you know, July.
Okay.
And then the HR and payroll is the last one, because that's the big one that you don't want to screw up. You don't mess with payroll. So, and we'll have an
I don't want you to mess up the
actual.
GL either, but.
Yeah. I can manage the GL, I can't manage payroll. I just feel like. So I want to make sure that we spend the time, you know, on payroll and HR, because it actually has an HR module, which we don't have right now.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Cool.
So we're
That's
kind of
exciting.
excited. We're actually meeting with North Andover, and have been for the last couple of weeks, because they have it. So they've been kind enough to kind of walk us through everything, the good, the bad, the,
Yep.
you know, what to ask, what not to, right?
Well, financial, it pays for itself, really, for financial management, for you especially, but just the bigger picture, the transparency for the residents. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
fantastic, just,
Yeah.
and that alone would be worth the
Yep.
value.
Well, it's funny, because when I looked at what we spent for the last conversion, which was over 10 years ago, it was my first year here,
Well overdue.
it was $260,000 that we spent. Okay, and the system was eons better than what we had.
Right.
But, you know, you've seen the reports that I can drill out, and we spend a lot of time downloading and creating our own. This system, it's like $350,000. It's 10 years later, and it's light years ahead. So,
Graphics heavy.
yeah, I like it, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it's what people want to see.
Okay.
It's all the mobile, I mean, for your work and so on, right? I mean, it's just everything's mobile, everything's in the cloud. and
Everything's
so
in the
on.
cloud,
So
we
it
don't have
takes-
to maintain the server, I don't have to, you know.
Other savings too.
I'll have to learn Russian.
There you go.
Cloud ski.
There you go.
That's
boy.
right.
So I just wanted to give you a little
Okay,
overview of it.
that's great, that's great.
No, I'm locked down. You know, it's fun. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, there's a button there.
You-
We're playing games
Oh,
over
you
here.
high-tech chairs, okay.
Is it time for,
No.
no, round table.
Member
Nice try.
updates.
Yeah.
Two things. Next week's meeting, Bonnie won't be able to be here. It is the 14th, you're booked, okay. So she won't be able to be here next week. What I'd like to do is spend some time talking about what we want to present for the TV show. And also, maybe we could spend some time together and try to tie up the town report. I know that, you know, Bonnie will have to tie in the numbers, but
Yeah.
if we can agree on the format and take a look at last year's that Betsy sent around, and if, you know, you want to make any changes to that, either the format or, you know, I'm not about.
Great format.
Yeah, I think the format is really well done. But again, if we want to just walk through it as a group and see if there's anything that we want to put a different slant on any of the subjects. That'd be fine. And also, so we could plan on that being the meat of next week's meeting. And then the 21st, when Bonnie's back, if we could walk through the warrant and vote whatever we feel comfortable voting on the articles on the 21st. Then I think we'll be in pretty good shape heading into the meeting on the 7th, is it
Seventh.
April 7th?
April 7th.
We meet with the selectmen and school committee again, and sort of the three items that I'm interested in specifically for that meeting. One was the field maintenance, and if we can get agreement on that. Two was field management. They were supposed to come back and how is alumni going to be managed? And is there a maintenance number tied to alumni, knowing that it'll just be an estimate?
When is this joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen? When is that? Oh,
Let's see, that was it April 7th? Or
no, April 7th is a Friday.
A third, let's see,
4th or 3rd.
let me see. I had it here somewhere.
I don't have it in here. so-
No, it's, I'm sorry.
It's okay, I can get my calendar.
Yep, no. I saw it someplace, what the heck, I thought it,
Is that a meeting that's not on the old schedule we had?
March 7th, but that was the
Yeah.
one we already had.
yeah, no, but,
Maybe it's April 4th.
as we talked about that when we were in the last joint meeting, and I had April 7th in my head, and I apologize for
It's
that.
okay, I just want to make sure we can all get in our calendars if we have.
Yeah.
You have it on?
Looking.
Okay.
Selectmen meet April 3rd. I don't know, that's what I'm just wondering.
21st and 28th.
Yeah, that was March 7th.
You know, that was the last meeting we had, but
Yeah,
the,
but that was
It
the
says March.
budget update with the joint. And you don't have another joint meeting on here.
on there, but we had talked about it in the last joint meeting because of the field issues, and then the schools coming back with their, what they were planning to spend in their reserves.
Yeah, well,
And
whenever
that-
you find out what that meeting is, since it's not on this schedule,
Yeah, it
be
was,
sure that LCTV knows
yep.
that we've added a meeting. Because
Yeah.
they have to get a contractor, so.
This just said early April, so
Okay.
it
so-
didn't have
All
a,
right, so let me get together with Keith and Melissa and figure out what date in early April
Okay.
fits, and I'll send out a note to everybody, including Kirby, on that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay?
Yep.
So next week, we'll spend mostly on the format and meat of the TV presentation, and then the town report, and anything else that you come up with that you want us to address,
yeah,
Bonnie.
if I get an updated warrant, I'll send it to you. I'll
Okay.
Just email it to you. So you can-
But then the 21st, we'll spend going through the warrant and voting the articles. And the 28th, we may not have anything. And then whenever I come up with the date with Melissa and Mike and Keith on the joint meeting, I'll put out a word on that. I'll try to do that this week, okay? All righty. Roundtable? Gary, anything?
No, I think we're meeting weekly, kind of keep our, besides, congratulations to the robotics team for Littleton High School. I know they, 2017 rookie at the Granite State.
Great.
Robotics.
That's great, yeah.
And we've got a lot of sports going on this week. Hockey, we're in the districts, and tomorrow night, and then Thursday night, Littleton girls basketball, high school, so.
Well, when are we going to see a sign at the,
That was brought up actually at the,
for the track team?
yeah, soon. I think they've been ordered actually already. So
Great.
they'll be right there with the signs that exist for the football, the 4 places in town.
Great, that's good. Good for those girls.
Yeah,
That's
it's
great.
fantastic.
To rename the town, Title Town.
Title town.
Great. Steve, anything?
Titleton.
Your favorite subject?
Yeah, my favorite subject, I was trying to avoid any involvement in this project, but
You're just so good at
I
it.
failed. I failed
Miserably.
miserably. PMBC recognized that the budget for Alumni Field that was submitted, I think it was on February 8th, only had about a 3.3% contingency. So we had Gale Associates come in, we told them, they came in last Wednesday, and we told them in advance to come in with a budget that was closer to 10% contingency. They came in with a budget which included a number of elements that they listed as deduct items. So they pulled those items out of the bid package and then discounted them by 20%, because I had a conversation with John Perry that I thought his estimates in the his values in the estimate were a little bit on the conservative side. So to take a conservative credit wasn't going to give us a real number. So he discounted those by about 20%. And they came in and gave us a revised budget last Wednesday, which gave us a 9.14% contingency.
Okay.
Subsequently, Bonnie was at the meeting, and she asked if they had included any costs for advertisement, legal fees, et cetera, and they had not. And I think today you gave...
Peer review, the peer review too.
Yeah, peer review, and I think today you gave them a budget.
Yes. Generally about 5,000 is all you need, but
Yeah.
it's gonna come from somewhere.
So they're gonna revise this.
Yeah.
So we'll probably end up with closer to a 9% contingency. And it
Does all this include a clerk of the works?
It does not.
Does not? On a
Does not.
$4 million project?
does not.
Wow.
So that was another topic of discussion. The clerk of the works, depending on who you talk to, I think Chris estimated about 70,000.
It's like 80, I think, if it's 20 weeks.
Yeah. I had estimated close to, well, I was using Gail's number of $125 an hour, but that would have been about $120,000 for, say, 24 weeks if you include closeout. But let's say it's somewhere in the vicinity of 100 grand. So we're going to see where the bids come in. My sense is that if we want to engage a clerk of the works, we ought to start talking about it now, so that that person is on board when the contractor gets notice to proceed, and then he can begin his work. We don't want him...
Try to play catch-up.
Yeah, exactly. So, but, you know, we're still in conversation. I mean, this is almost a daily dialogue. So,
I had said that I feel very strongly that we should have a clerk of the works, just because of the past projects. And Joe Calentro had the perfect quote in the meeting. You know, somebody brought up that, well, we didn't have a clerk of the works when we did the track. And Joe turned around and said, and look what happened there. And, I mean, it's true, you need somebody there that's looking out for the town's interest. And the clerk serves as a very different function, my point of view, than the designer, because in my experience, the designer is gonna defend their drawings to the death, even if there's something wrong, and it happens, you know, it doesn't make them bad people, but sometimes it's a bad, you know, design in some facet. The clerk digs the heels in for the town. So it shouldn't be somebody that's affiliated, in my opinion, with the designer. We've already seen savings with the clerk at the fire station. There was an issue that came up just in the last day or two with some material regarding the contingency, having a good contingency. They discovered some material underneath where the old town hall was or something, some ashes or,
Their bodies.
I don't know. So there's a material that needs to be removed. It wasn't budgeted for, but they have a decent contingency, so they can account for it. And the clerk is managing it.
Unsuitable material.
Yeah.
Was it?
So, it's a $4 million project. We just should have somebody on site making sure that the depth of the materials are the right depth and the parking lots are, paved the right way and. So, in my opinion, even if the budget can't, if there's no way to make it fit in the budget, my hope is that it does. I think that we need to figure out how to solve that. And we could do that by year-end transfers. We could do that, you have a line item in your budget that, has engineering and other technical support.
Well, we also have some projects that need to be closed out that have money left over.
Right.
And we may be able to, not speaking for the chairman, but, we need to close those projects out and then realize how much we've got left.
The fire station ended up with a great big contingency or bigger contingency because the budgets came, the
bids
bids
came in
lower, so go after some of that.
Unfortunately,
Hit it up. Hit that till they're done. But I feel strongly that, we should figure out how to solve that problem. And
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
agree.
That's,
Yeah.
yep.
So that's all I have unless you have some questions.
But the timing in terms of actually getting a bid and getting a proposal, and getting somebody working on this thing is what? Where are we on that?
Well,
Is that a tough question? I don't know. Yeah?
maybe, after this meeting's over, I have an idea. I just don't want
Okay.
to talk about
All right,
it
fine.
publicly.
That's fair. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. Thank you.
Okay. Betsy?
I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Alan? All righty. Seeing no public out there, we won't have any public input. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Minutes.
So moved.
Excuse me, time. No. Okay, nice try. No, don't, Alan, wait.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I forgot about minutes. We
Oh.
have minutes of the,
Last week, right?
February 21st.
right? And we have enough people that were here that were on the quorum, just to make sure that we're all set.
Yeah, the only one was absent last time was Greg.
Okay. Okay. We have a motion on the minutes. They went out a while ago, and any changes have been
Move
made.
to accept?
Have a motion to accept. and
Second?
Motion to accept and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, accepted. Thank you, Marilyn, my mistake. Now, having a motion and a second to adjourn,
Aye.
all in
Aye.
favor?
Abstain.
Okay, you can sit there. All right. Thank you, you can flip it up. Thank you.
Camera.